Let's talk about one of the biggest opportunities that we see, but also one of the biggest challenges, that being discontinued parts. What does dealing with a discontinued part or a really complex product lifecycle, what challenges does that pose to an engineer?
Oh, tons. First things you need to do is the tooling still around? Certain companies, and especially in a low volume, high mix environment, companies are not making millions of dollars on their product. They're shutting them down, throwing them away. Industrial, especially, my experience, if they weren't selling so much product a year, they were getting rid of them, obsoleting them, not even getting rid of the tooling, putting holes in the product offering by just obsoleting certain parts when you still have the tooling to make the rest of the product family. That just drives engineers nuts because it's just looking at numbers. And in my opinion, in my experience, that isn't the best way to do that. If you still have the tooling, you can make a part, but when they go obsolete, you have to look at if the tooling still exists, and that can be a crapshoot, really. What it takes to get that product back in, and what it's going to cost to get that, and that has to be a conversation with the product manager and make people making those decisions for the money. It's not a fun thing. It really isn't.
When you think about those examples that you just gave, how much of your time is actually allotted to being a detective to find those answers? I mean, is that something that you guys plan for every week, or is it just additional capacity that you have to give up?
It's additional capacity you have to give up. It's not planned. Over time, you can kind of gauge, like, okay, this product was obsoleted, and they may have looked at a couple thousand of part numbers that they obsoleted. So it's not something you can per se plan for, but you get an idea, oh, okay, these like weekly you're getting part numbers, and that happened to me in my experience. It was almost every week I was reactivating part numbers, and that's, again, on some things it's easy, but you still have to do the due diligence to check the tooling, to see what it takes to get them up, to get the process sheets and everything updated. It's a pain. And
when you actually go through the process of obsoleting something, how do you communicate to the customer that that part's not going to be available? Do you do last time buys? How do you give them the heads up that that part is now in jeopardy?
Typically, they would be on a customer notification, and that's what most companies send out is, hey, we're obsoleting this part. If things work properly, I've had manufacturing where they've killed the part without telling me, and that means that causes all other kind of issues, because if the customer is on agreement, they need to be notified. They have the right for that approval to obsolete that part. And if that doesn't, then we have to get the tooling back and be able to make that part again. So typically they're notified. I've had customers, when we've had obsoleted parts, come to me and say, well, you didn't notify me of this. And if they're not on agreement, they technically do not need to be notified. So there's a give and take there a little bit, but that's typically a notification of some sort.
Okay. How many times does a notification find the customer at the end of the rainbow?
Probably lower than people, like salespeople, expect, because the way it's worked in my experience, in my history, was all the product notifications go to a sales engineer, and it's their responsibility to take it to the customer, and there's a gap there. In the previous years, like a short time, customers may have gotten automatic notifications. A lot of people were going to that route, probably because they weren't getting notified of things from the sales engineer. So it's gotten a little better, but it's still, if they get a notification saying this part isn't available anymore, they're still not happy because they need that. And that may cause a requalification on their part, which is more money and more cost. The notifications really, I don't know if it's been that good. I would say the percentages are pretty low. But it's still frustrating when any part is obsolete for numerous people. Customers, engineers, I don't know, the sales guys.
Yeah, I would say those are the opportunities from a commercial standpoint, is how do we make customers aware that there is risk in the products that they've selected. I've seen many times in my experience where a part is actually designed in on a brand new platform only to find that it's actually obsolete. So I think some of the biggest opportunities that we see as a company is, one, how do we de-risk some of that complexity with inside a complicated product lifecycle, but for those surprises that do come along, how can we supplement some of those options in a different way.